city into the capital of Israel. Up until the days of David, this is a Jebusite city, and we're not able to capture it throughout the whole time of Joshua and the judges. And David is the first one who does that. And there's a lot of logical explanations why David does that. Because of the water source, or because of the walls that were here that gave protection to the city, because it was somewhat close to some major roads. But I say that what David wants to do is to connect back to the source. And he wants to build God's house on Mount Moriah. And the whole issue of sacrifice for sin, to bring it back to where it started with Abraham and Isaac. And you won't find that in the books, but it's pretty clear to me. Because God doesn't let him build the house. He says, your hands are bloody. And only Solomon eventually will build the temple right here. Now over here, the temple, it would have courts and holy places, and there would be a certain order which was laid out by Moses, how to make that covenant come into existence according to the law, with the sacrifice for sin being the salvation for anybody who broke that law. Because if you broke the law, you were taken in stone. But if you repented with a clean heart, or you did it by mistake and you learned, I don't want to do it again, the only chance you had was through that brazen altar. Which means that you would bring an animal, had nothing to do with your sin or whatever you did. That animal was pretty innocent, you know. Lambs are pretty cute. Mary had a little lamb. And you take that lamb and you slay it. And it dies. So you can live. Now it doesn't give you eternal life. All it does is gives you a few more years until you go do what you do again. So that's all it did, and that was the order right here. I have archaeology and other proofs from other places that prove that. All kinds of altars that were found with kosher bones next to it. Now, this law that we lived by for hundreds of years, the base of this law, do you know what it was? Was a certain kind of sacrifice. It wasn't exactly a sacrifice, actually. But it was something called the red heifer, a red cow. And those ashes would be used for the purification of the priest so they can go and do what they had to do on the Temple Mount, in the temple. That is the main problem today. I say we don't need it, but we can't reform that law no more. But I think we don't need it because Jesus already paid the price. But there's no temple today, and there's no red heifer today. Even if you had the physical building, you still need to get the red heifer. The red heifer was sacrificed right here from this place. And I think that's very important. This is also where Jesus ascended up eventually. The red heifer being the base of all of that law. Jesus being the only one. He says he didn't come to destroy or change the law, but to fulfill. Being the only one who fulfilled the law. Another thing that was in this temple, I think the most important thing that anybody who has anything about God should study a little carefully was the Holy of Holies. We talk about holy places. Well, this is the most important thing to him. The Holy of Holies. Right? Has anybody here been to the Temple Institute? You've been to the Temple Institute, Harry, before?
Yes.
In the Temple Institute, they show the artifacts that were in the Holy of Holies. Did you see a replica of something called the Ark of the Covenant? That was inside the Holy of Holies, which was on the stone where Isaac was going to be sacrificed. That's the Holy of Holies. And inside of that ark, you had the Ten Commandments made by Moses. You had a bowl of manna, and Aaron's rod that budded. This ark had a cover. And what was on the cover of the ark? The mercy seat and the cherubim, where God would speak from. Now, Harry, do you remember the cherubim that they showed at the Temple Institute? Well, it's based on a Jewish tradition. And this is very, very important. The two cherubim, according to Jewish religion, tradition, are male and female. And you can see that very clearly at the Temple Mount. You ask them, why is it male and female? They'll probably not even know what to tell you. But I encourage you on your day off to go and check that out at least. Male and female is also something that we believe in. We call it one new man. New man Adam. Might be in the likeness of the old man Adam. What do we know about the old man Adam? Male and female created him and called their name Adam. They were made out of male and female. That is what we believe in. Male and female being two groups of people coming together as one body. One from the Jews, one from the Gentiles. Are there married people here? Yeah. I prayed a lot when I got married. I said, God, please, if this is not for you, please take this away. One thing that I was smart enough to know before I got married is I am not going to change that woman. And of course, she's not going to change me. But nevertheless, we come together as one body. And God blesses that with fruit. The two cherubim. Now this was the secret of God's plan, and He didn't allow everybody to see this. Only one man, the most highest priest of them all, was only allowed to go in there once a year on the most holy day of the all, and only after he brought blood for him and for all the congregation. And depending on the congregation stake, nothing ensured he's coming out of there alive. When he'd go in there to do his incense, he had some bells on the bottom. They had some ropes with flesh hooks if those bells stopped ringing. And some say there's no record that a priest ever died. No, there is record of priests dying inside of the Holy of Holies. The sons of Aaron for the first time, and then there's another time in there when that was when somebody touched it, I think, when David was bringing it up. But there are records of people losing their lives because of that. Because that was serious business. That picture. And the only time that the high priest had a chance to see that picture was every few years in this very spot right here, where Jesus would ascend. This is where they would have the sacrifice of the red heifer, which is the base of all of that law of the covenant. And on that day, you would have clear view into the courts and into the holy place. And on that day only, they would open the veil as he is sacrificing the red heifer, right here. And you have an eye view of that secret inside. And once again, as Jesus is on the cross, fulfilling everything that he came to do, when he says, it is finished, that veil was ripped again. And everybody could see the Holy of Holies. And what was in there? That picture. And we need to understand that the only way we're going to do this is doing it together. There's going to be a remnant from the Jews. I guarantee you. You need to understand, there's maybe not a lot of messianics or anything, but a Jew, when he becomes a messianic, he's a dead man. Literally. His family mourns for him and he's gone. And for a Jew to do that, there have to be Jews that have a personal meeting with the Lord. They actually, do you know that he's alive, first of all? Do you understand this? And people are meeting him.
Yep, they are.
Even rabbis. careful that we don't try and change them. Because I saw it too many times happen when finally they see something and then we got to come and tell them all about it. Things that we got to be very careful when we treat the Jews. Things like Trinity. They don't understand this. How could, what are you talking about? And we're very quick to baptize them into our church. They're going to be baptized, I'm sure. In water and in the Spirit, I'm sure. But we need to be easy with these things, and we need to understand that we're not going to do it on our own. Not us on our own and not you on our own. The only way we're going to do this is when we come together as one. And once again, this is also pictured throughout the whole Bible. Male and female created he, then called their name Adam. Soon may it be heard in the hills of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem, a sound of rejoice, a sound of happiness, a sound of the bridegroom, the sound of a bride. And all kinds of pictures about how Gentiles were brought into this. First Rahab from Jericho, when everybody was destroyed. She will marry into Judah, and from that relationship Boaz would come out. Boaz would meet a woman that would be a Moabite that would say, your God will be my God, your people will be my people, and they will marry, and King David would come out of that. Eventually Jesus himself will come from this relationship of Jews and Gentiles coming together. And this is the only way I see it taking place also in the future. So, is there any questions at this point?
Will we be able to go on the Temple Mount or not?